You lead your team. Let's talk about it. The Lead Your Firm podcast. Lessons in leadership from advisors who live it every day. Hosted by Daren Blonski, Managing Principal at Firmata Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Contents are for educational purposes only. Nothing herein amounts to investment advice or an offer to buy or sell securities. The Lead Your Firm podcast starts now.
Carmine, welcome. Thanks for joining us on the Lead Your Firm podcast, where we talk all about leading small and medium-sized registered investment advisors here in the United States. You've got an incredible background, incredible story. What you've managed to do since repenting of your ways of as life insurance agent has been pretty impressive, and how far you've taken your firm. So I'm not going to spoil it for the listeners. I'll let Carmine tell his story. And so tell us, Carmine, tell us about your journey and how you got in this business. Let's start there.
I got in the business, and thank you for having me, Daren. Always good to spend some time with my California brother here.
That's right. He's my mafia brother and I'm the hippie, right?
Pretty much. Tree hugger Daren is what I call you. So
Right.
started in the industry 2003. I was with a Fortune 75 company out of high school, but in the labor sense. So I would work for the phone company, fixing lines and manholes and telephone poles, right? From the time I was 18 to the time I was 23. And then got introduced to the industry by several friends, wound up taking a job at an insurance company based on a relationship that existed at that time. And got my that was in 2003, got my CFP and started charging planning fees in 05, CFP in 06. And advisory and planning was really right out the gate what I wanted to do. And over the years, it got more and more restrictive to what we can do and how we can serve our clients. And the straw that broke the camel's back is they kind of, I would say they 4X'd what our requirement was at that time of the core business that we had to write with that insurance company. So the insurance companies manufacture product and they expect their people to sell a certain amount of them within a certain time frame. And that was a relatively low bar from the beginning. So it wasn't that bad, but when they 4X'd it in 2019, that was kind of the sledgehammer to the head, like, all right, this makes no sense. You want to turn me, a CFP practitioner, to an insurance agent? I'm out. You know, that was the event that kind of triggered my exit. And for the couple years before that, I was talking to a lot of people on the independent side and getting more of an idea on what's possible and how to actually exit. So there was some blocking and tackling before that event, but that kind of pushed me out the door. And I went on a 19-day safari with my family right 2 days after they announced that change. So I had 19 days to think, to do nothing but think, because we didn't have internet, we didn't have cell phones, TVs. And I asked myself one question. I said, if I knew then what I knew now, would I choose that company to affiliate with to be an advisor? And the answer was 100% no. Like, right, it took me less than a second to answer. And as soon as I landed, me and my team got to work and started building the firm from scratch. And we launched supposed to launch March of 2020. So we know what was going on in the world at that time. We postponed till May. So we just had our 3-year birthday last month. And, today it's Cornerstone is an environment where a constrained advisor can actually be an advisor to their clients without product sale requirements and limitations on technology and services. It's really that, that safe haven where an advisor can actually grow without that, being constrained by what I feel is a conflict of interest as a CFP or charging fees for planning, but yet having a sales requirement to me is it's not just that company's issue, it's an industry issue. And today we're growing and because of our culture, and it's been a great journey. You've been a side seat driver here with me for a good part of that journey. So I got a lot of information from you and help when stuff was going south, and I appreciate that. You went through the journey very much like I did. But now
let's talk about culture for a minute, because you mentioned, Carmine, about culture. What makes Cornerstone unique? Your culture.
So when I built it out, I didn't envision it being even this big ever, right? And this was only 3 years ago, so a lot of things have changed. But when I reference culture, it's the mentality from it, because there's many types of advisors. There's transactional advisors. There's advisors that are driven on different human needs, like the 6 human emotions or 6 human needs that Tony Robbins talks about. Like, one is significance, right? In our culture, that today does not exist. Like, I'm surrounded, there's 11 advisors today at Cornerstone, and we all have a client first mentality, and we're a planning first firm, right? We don't transact and move on. We have very deep relationships with our clients, and that's part of the culture, is how an advisor would want to serve their client. The other one is for the most part, the advisors here have what we consider abundance mentalities, right? There's so much opportunity out there, right? They don't have scarcity mentalities where they're not afraid to invest in themselves through personal development, or invest in their business by maybe hiring another staff person or things like that. And we're all givers. So we have multiple mastermind meetings every year where we all get together, present issues and concerns, and we all act as a team to help that one advisor make some changes. And that's the cultural thread that we have today. And when we're talking to a potential new advisor or new advisor team, the cultural conversation comes before anything. Because I don't care what our tech stack looks like and what the financial aspect of that potential relationship is. If there's no cultural match, then we don't go any further than that. So that is really that's the first step. And I've said no to more advisors I've said yes to, because the culture means a lot to me.
So how do you have that conversation, Carmine, with people? So they, let's say I'm an advisor and I come in. How are you making that decision whether or not they align with your culture, they match with your culture?
So I'm going to think about one person in particular. And this was kind of like a dream opportunity for you or I. It's like, he's in the next town over, wants to retire in 2 or 3 years. So he wants to basically tuck in and bolt on and then have a succession agreement in place, right? And he was a very transactional person. And he came from the insurance industry, shocker, for like 40 years. So it's just like.
So define transaction for those who might not know.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Transactional person.
Did not go deep with planning. Just his goal was just to sell a product, sell something and move on, right? He had no service staff. The way he communicates with clients was they just emailed his wife at her personal email address. He didn't have a standard.
Wait. They would email him or his wife at their personal email address.
Yeah, it was very odd. As soon as that was kind of a red flag moment for me.
It's like
he didn't have and you know how regimented we are with our strategic calendar of which clients get reviews and what. None of that was set up, right? You had hundreds and hundreds of households, and they were basically defined on who can I go see to transact. Like, those are the top of the list of my check-ins this month. And I'm like, oh, that's, he was more of a sales organization mindset. We're a service organization. So, and the conversation it almost as if he was trying to sell me on how he's trying to get away from the transactional piece and really work with clients deeper like we do. Cause he got really under the hood, and he was here, we were courting for 6-7 months, pretty sizable practice. And at the end of the day, I go, look, it just things, not all things were meant to be. And I think it's even better for you that you don't come here, because I'm going to force you to have to change a lot of stuff. You're going to have to conform with all the tech. They had no CRM. I mean, he was like old school paper files. And if you look in my office, there's no paper. We have paper. The closest thing I come to is my Remarkable, right? Which is the opposite of paper. And he just wasn't a cultural match. Great guy. What really bothered me was he was such a likable guy. I almost wish he wasn't, because then I wouldn't have had to go through 6-7 months. And I was trying to make it work. And my COO was like, it's not going to work. Don't waste your time. Like, he emailed him 3 times. And but it took some time. But at that point, he wasn't happy with it. And he closed up his doors and got nothing for his practice, where I would have been able to buy his practice if he was more like an advisor like us. He moved to Florida and he got nothing for his practice. The BD he was with kept all of his clients, and he's got nothing.
So this is a good example, Carmine, of a moment in leadership where you trusted your gut on something, right? You went against what would have made sense with the dollar signs and said, hey, I'm going to do that just because I'm going to make money. But this is a great example where you did the opposite of that, which I believe is a really mature leadership behavior, which is learning to say no and knowing when to say no, which is actually way more important than saying yes. I'm curious, tell me about an experience you've had as a leader where you actually said yes and you should have said no.
Oh, great one. And I think you know this, and that's why you're asked that.
I don't know this, what you're going to say.
I had an
probably know it. I just don't know which example.
Okay, well, you'll know when I go through the story, because you and I have talked about it. I mentioned scarcity and abundance, right? And one of the things that makes us very different here is coaching and consulting our advisor teams is our core tenet here. That's what we do differently than just about every other firm. We do an annual plan, a 1, 3, and 10-year business plan every December with each advisor, and every quarter it's a coaching/consulting check-in with me to make sure that the 90-day goals are hit. What's the next 90 look like? How does that move the 1-year and 3-year needle? What do you need from us to make sure you hit these goals? So I heard my first business coach in 2009. And
so hold on one sec, Carmine. So I think this is a really important delineator of what you do differently. And I've noticed this in working with you over the years and talking to you. Where did you learn that process? Where did you get that template? How did you come about that coaching process?
I would say it started when I was new in the industry at that insurance company. You had to meet with your manager like once a week. So I needed it. I came from a very unrelated field. I never went to college, so I never had no sales experience or anything like that. So for me, I needed that. And there were two people that kind of helped me in my first, I think, year and a half is when I needed the most help. And then I was member of a study group at one time, and a couple of us were kind of accountable to each other. So I always knew accountability was big, and it helped me tremendously. Then I hired Dan Sullivan in 2009. And every quarter I'd fly to Chicago and we'd spend a full day in a workshop with 30 to 35 other entrepreneurs. And then I would always stay the day, not always, most of the time I'd stay the day after as well, because I needed a day not going back to the office to be in the business, need to work on the business. Mm-hmm. So very early on, I knew that strategic time, like shutting the engine down. I say it all the time, you can't work on an engine while it's running. Shutting the engine down and basically prioritizing and executing what needs to get done is so important. I see so many people make that mistake. And now I had, that was Dan Sullivan was my first coach. I had two in between. And now you and I both work with Joe Lucas. And, with him, I have a monthly call with him, right? And that started with him 6 years ago when I hired him the first year. And I know the impact it's made on me. The impact it's made on you, and how important that partnership is. Like, Joe Lucas isn't a coach, he's a partner, right? He's a trusted partner, just like you are. When you and I have issues, who are we calling? Questions. We're calling, texting each other, right? Very few people that I've seen have those kind of relationships. And I said, well, my advisors need to know. It's my responsibility as a leader to make sure these advisors are empowered to have everything that they need to succeed. Whatever success means for them, I need to make sure as the leader that they're equipped. And so the basic framework came from, I guess, just me coming up in that framework and knowing the impact for me. But I build out it's on autopilot. My staff knows to email each advisor the first of every quarter, what needs to be prepped before those review meetings. And I know exactly where every advisor is and how close to the goals they are. And I love the fact at my Christmas party this year that I got up and I addressed all the advisors came in for it. I have a personal relationship with each and every one of them. I know what's going on with their personal lives. I know what's going on with their business. And I love that part of what I do. It's great to move the needle for a client. When you see a client that has progressed, a client that's retired 3 years earlier or 5 years earlier, or they're writing the checks for tuition that they thought they'd never be able to save for. Like, that's rewarding. But for me, seeing the impact to an advisor, his family, his or her family, and their clients. Now, instead of impact at one household, you're talking hundreds of households of positive impact. That's what I'm driven by. So I think the coaching consulting is necessary in order to make that impact.
Right. Okay. So let's go there for a minute. Which is incredible vision. I love it. how are you going to scale yourself? Because you're growing fast. And how many advisors you got now?
We have 11.
You have 11 advisors. So let's say each one of those conversations, that's 11 hours a quarter.
Mhm.
When do you cap? How do you cap? And at what point do you figure out some other process?
So, you know this about me. I'm not motivated by money. And that's why it's easy for me to say no, because I keep the vision, the important. I keep the main thing, the main thing. And me and my management team made a decision last year. As we bolted on, I believe, 7 advisors just last year. So it was a very busy year. And I said in September, we onboarded a 2-advisor team. I said, after they're on and we've transitioned their accounts and they're good, we're taking an operational pause and we're not onboarding another advisor until we know we're operationally sound. And we're past that now. We hired an operations consultant who, she's been absolutely great with us. I can say now we're now at the point of onboarding another 4 by the end of the year because we took that 6-month pause. And the goal today is to get to 20 advisors and do another operational pause. And by our pipeline, we should be, I'm sorry, it's really an AUM based goal. And then we're going to take operational pause. We should be there by end of next year.
And what's that AUM goal, Carmine?
I'm going to hit $1 billion by the end of next year.
Okay. So 1 billion next year, then you're going to take an operational pause. Yep. And how are you going to determine whether or not that operational pause is meaningful, or do you achieve what you wanted to achieve with it?
The whole thing is I don't know what I don't know. So I brought in an expert, like it's the who, not how problem. So we brought in our operation consultant in September, and she gave us the lowdown of the holes we have. And it'll be basically the same process. Okay, we're here at $1 billion. Here's where we see bottlenecks. Here's a piece of tech that could solve this issue. You actually need to, right now, we hire 2 new staff people internally. We're doing that. But when we get to $1 billion, maybe we need 2 more. But then what roles are they playing? Do we reorg the current staff? We're constantly changing our workflows in our CRM. Our CRMs are absolute backbone. Everything gets done in there. So, but again, shutting the engine down in order to fix what's going on. But we first need that assessment. And we follow the VTO. So we have quarterly rocks, issues, and every time there's an issue, we're really good at putting it in our VTO board of like, we need.
So for those who don't know, what's a VTO, Carmine?
A vision traction organizer. So Gino Wickman wrote a great book called Traction, and he developed this system called EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's basically framework, how you basically create your mission statement, your 1, 3, and 10-year goals, and then the quarterly things that you have to do to align with those 1, 3, and 10-year goals. And it's a very collaborative process. All the staff have their own goals that they're assigned to, and every Monday we review, and we keep it on a Microsoft project board. But there's a spot in there, there's a silo in there that's issues. So whenever we're like, well, this doesn't look right, we put in an issue and it's just, and we'll discuss it. Okay, this issue is posted. Is it, how big is it? Do we address it now? Do we address it later? Or and we'll put it to whatever time of the year that we need to address it. And that's allowed us to prioritize and execute, because we have 30 projects going on right now, but we have 4 or 5 that are top of the list. And actually, we rearranged that today because I'm going on a sabbatical starting after I leave here from doing your podcast, and I won't be back for 3.5 weeks. So during that time, the priority list actually changed with what they're doing while I'm away a couple hours ago. So we're constantly looking at that and reprioritizing.
Awesome. So I like to say behind every great leader, there's a better leader. Who's your number 2? And how did you find your number 2?
So Jay's been with me. I think he's been with me for 8 years now. He started as an advisor. And at one point, when I was still with the insurance company, my main staff person, I had to let go. And she'd been with me since I was 6 months in business. So you're talking, it was a 16-year relationship. And I had to let her go. Believe me, I did not want to, but it just was necessary for the mission, for the team. It wasn't working. And I'd reach out to him. I said, "Hey, look," and even to his admittance today, he wasn't a rainmaker. I wasn't a very big rainmaker. He was surviving. And I said, "Hey, I'll pay you X. Can you just help prepare for my meetings and do some blocking and tackling for me while we find the replacement for this person?" He said, "Yes." So he took the role. first couple months, like we're finishing each other's sentences. And when we were transitioning, he ran the transition for us. And then now he's elevated himself to, he is the point person for every advisor transition. He starts the new advisor conversations, but he's kind of the point person where the advisors go to now. And he manages our team here. We have 6 staff people here in Fairfield. And he's an incredible operations person. And I go back to the framework. Like if someone knows the mission, what the goal is, it's pretty easy for them to make decisions when alternate things happen, right? So you may say, hey, we need X, Y, and Z done, or we didn't anticipate this happening. But if you know what the end result should be, then you can pivot, and you're going to have to. He's very good at that. He's very good at managing the advisors and the team, and he's one of the reasons that we're here today. I mean, he's been a great partner.
All right, so tell me about a crisis situation in leadership, right? I mean, there's critical incidents that happen in all of our leadership journeys. Tell me about a moment that really refined you and changed you as a leader.
I would say one of the things, a point of adversity, was when I left that insurance company. 2 days after I resigned, I got a letter that they wanted money and they were going to file a FINRA arbitration case. And it was a coin toss whether this was going to happen. This was threatened to me by management when I told them I was looking about leaving, and they were trying to make it very difficult for me. So I want to be very clear. This was more specifically because it was me, not the standard operating procedure for this company or most companies. It was very personal. And transitioning the practice during the height of COVID, this was May of 2020. May 4th was our day, we call our Independence Day. We celebrate it every year. Getting packages from FINRA.
I celebrate my Independence Day every time I got to pay taxes to the government.
They celebrate every time they get your taxes by buying a $1,200 toilet seat. So
we're losing $6 billion in Ukraine. However,
right.
You want
So it was a very emotional time because I've never been in my 44 years on this earth. I've never been in trouble. And I got this packet from FINRA, 1,000 pages and discovery, and hired an attorney, and I'm bleeding money, and during that time, I never lost composure. The vision never got blurry to me. As much stress as I had, I never showed it to my team, and I dealt with it in ways, and I dealt with it great. And I would tell you, I came out of this, and if you asked me today, we've had this conversation before, like I wouldn't change a single thing. I would do exactly what I did, knowing I was going to get that letter in the mail, and knowing that would cost a year and a half of going back and forth. Then it cost me a few bucks. I wouldn't change a thing. Three great byproducts came out of that process. One, so the largest insurance company in the country was coming after me. Right? I'm no one on anyone's list, right? And they represent everything I believe is wrong in our industry. Then I'm probably onto something, right? It bothered them that much to deploy capital and time during a time where their clients needed them the most. They're like, yeah, we're going to spend some money and some staff time and go after this nothing. I was, no one on no one's radar at that point. So that was validation that I'm probably on the right track. Two, it created credibility for me with other advisors that were reaching out to me. Now, again, 11 advisors, I didn't make a single outbound call. All these people called me because of the reputation I had of having integrity, and knowing that I would build something good. I still get that comment today from a lot of the advisors that came over. It kind of gave me some integrity. Like, hey, look, I went through worst case scenario, and I thrived because of it. So it gives me instant credibility with that. And the third thing is the mental strength that I was able to gain through this exercise of being sued by a large insurance company during the height of COVID, all the other things we were dealing with, transitioning clients. if I took the money it took me to fight this case, that same dollar amount, and I signed up for every Tony Robbins self-help seminar out there, I want to get 10% of the mental strength that I attained during that time. I mean, it was a challenge. There were days that were bad. But at the end of the day, I can look back at any challenge today and just go, I mentally go back to that spot and go, oh, if you did that, this is a walk in the park. Roger that. And I just move on. And it really has given me that attitude that there's nothing that can't be accomplished, even when you have that kind of adversity. But I never showed how it was affecting me, and my team never knew. They never knew. My clients never knew. My wife never knew how bad it was. She found out because I was doing a podcast and in our home office, and she heard me saying how bad it was. And she's like, I had no idea. I go, no, you wouldn't have. I'm not bringing that home to you and the kids. We were going through, I knew 7 people personally who died from COVID. It was a bad time for us. I'm like, well, I wasn't.
7 people. Wow.
7. Yeah.
That's when the East Coast was just getting clobbered, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was, and that's such a crazy number because I talk to people and no one's ever near, oh, I know 1 or 2. And I'm like, no, I knew 7. And that's a big, the 2 were clients.
Big number, man.
Yeah. But going through that and my cousin, who's an advisor here with me that started in the industry with me, was in the hospital for 23 days, 9 on a ventilator in March of 2020, when there was less than 1,000 cases. So I'm dealing with that, the transition, getting all this stuff in the mail from the arbitration. That company had other advisors calling my clients, telling lies. Like you talk about, and you and I reference in our book about the mental aspect of transitioning. Mm-hmm. I dealt with it through physical activity and meditation. And those were my 2 best friends. Like there were days that I'd go to the gym in the morning and I'd get hit with some kind of adversity by 10, 11 o'clock. I go, I got to go for a run. And I'd leave my office. I go on a run, come back, shower, and I was a completely different person. And I know for a fact, good reason where I'm at, why I'm at, where I'm at today is because of the physical pursuits that I follow every single day.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, that resonates with a lot of experience that I've talked with high performers, have pretty intense physical regimens that they engage with. And, the way I always think about it as a leader, your body, your mind, your soul, who you are as a person is fundamentally the instrument in which you lead from. And so if you haven't taken care of those things, it's very difficult to lead and
we
to be
talk
successful.
About, the 3 things we need as leaders is we need physical, emotional, and mental strength, right? Those are the 3 things you need to fire on all 3 of those cylinders in order to run optimal. But I'll tell you this, one of those can affect the other 2, because if your physical is running optimal, it will affect your emotional and your mental. It will benefit your emotional state and your mental state 100%. If you're in a good mental state, that's not going to really move the needle that much with your physical state of well-being. I'm a much better person mentally, better energy, everything when I work out. And if they could sell the byproduct of a solid workout regimen in a pill, it would be the best-selling drug on the planet.
Yeah. It's so interesting. Show me a person who doesn't have a good regimen for working out and they're a leader. I'm going to show you someone who's on a collision course with themselves.
They may run optimal for a long time. But then the question is, how much better would you be if you were running on all cylinders?
Yeah.
How much better will your mental state, your emotional state be? And I think that's what makes me a good, I'll say this because she's not here, a good husband and a good father and a good leader.
She's on next week's podcast. We'll ask her all about that, Carmine.
Oh, great. I would tell you that I attribute it, and what's great is my kids. My daughter's a competitive gymnast. My son plays ice hockey, and he's now going to the gym almost every day with his friends. But they see that from my wife and I on how when we're on vacation, it's Daddy works out every day. Does it? Yeah, roger that. That's what you do. They see that as normalcy, and I credit my dad for that. My dad was a marathon runner, was a boxer, and we had a gym in every house we lived in. And my dad will be 79 in August, and he still works out. And to me and my brothers, that was normal behavior, right? Yeah. Me waking up at 4:40 every morning and being out the house before the kids are even up, that's a normal thing. Like The one, like don't work on Fridays. When I'm home, my daughter's like, what are you doing? Oh, right, it's Friday, right? That's normal for her.
Yeah.
And I want them to grow up in that environment that they know that their parents are grinding every day, because that hopefully they take that and say, I'm going to equate the grinding to success. And to me, it's been a huge pillar. And I do it for the mental reasons, not the physical reasons. I think the mental benefits for exercise is much more impactful than the physical.
Absolutely. All right. So we're going to wrap this up, Carmine. But before we do, your leadership philosophy, how would you describe that in a nutshell?
I am a huge fan of empowering people to their capabilities. Now, I read Extreme Ownership in 2017, Jocko Willink and Leif Babin's book, and I've been following that. I just went through Refresher in April. Me and all my staff do Echelon Front training. We hired them to do training for us weekly, and taking ownership and prioritizing and executing, keeping things simple. All of these things are essential. And these are people that we're learning from that have led in the most stressful times. Like you're talking about bullets whipping, a stressful time, getting a letter in the mail. Like he may look at me when I'm saying that and say, what is this letter in the mail? I got a grenade thrown at me. Yeah, I mean, come on. It's not a grenade. It's not an IED. And these are leaders, great leaders that raised their hand to serve and were able to lead extraordinary teams under the most stressful circumstances. And I have just the utmost respect for all of our service people. But when I'm going to take leadership training, I'm going to take it from someone that's been through that. And so we follow the Echelon Front framework of extreme ownership. But that's why I'm able to go on these sabbaticals, is that everyone's empowered to do their thing. And we provide training. Our communication is, I have a personal development budget for all my staff. So we're going to different conferences and, different trainings online. It's whatever you need to do your job. I'm going to empower you. And this guy we hired last year, there were some conversations on compensation, obviously, that always happens in the interview, and he got exactly what he wanted. And he wants us to map out. His high emotion is certainty. So he's like, yeah, listen, in 3 years, where do you think I'd be in a compensation perspective? I leaned into him. I said, you make yourself here indispensable, which means I can't open the door unless I know you're coming in today. I'll give you whatever you want. And his whole physiology changed. He got rigid in his seat. He almost stood. He's like, I'm ready to grind it out. And he's been rewarded multiple times over because he's been an absolute great member of the team here. And I'm a big believer in obviously health and wellness, but it's more like personal. I don't want anyone to live to work. All my staff gets unlimited PTO time. They get full gym reimbursements if they go a certain amount of times a year. Like I want them to be in that environment. And we follow the cover and move strategy from Echelon Front. So we have redundancy plans for if they want to take days off, great. Well, we already have the redundancy plan set up. So who's handling trading, who's handling the phone, who's dealing with scheduling, it's already set up in the process. So I'm empowering them to live their best life. And if that's having a month off and playing golf, great, whatever it is, it is what it is. And I read this book called The Dream Manager. I don't know if you read that book before.
I read it years ago.
Yeah, it's a very interesting. Ask your people what their dream is. And one of the people's dreams here was to be a member of a certain country club. And I made it happen last year. And he's funny because he's so appreciative. The first 4 or 5 times, he would text me as he's parking. He goes, I can't believe I'm actually here playing golf. Thank you so much. And that makes me feel a little uncomfortable when I get that kind of thing. And my response to him, and I meant it, was like, I didn't give you, you've earned this. I didn't give you nothing. I don't give anyone anything. You've earned it. And that's what I want for I want them to know they have this stuff, not because I'm just giving it to them, because you've earned it and you deserve it, more importantly. And that's the environment we have here. I mean, I think I wouldn't pick a group of people different. I wouldn't change a single person. So but I know I'm very fortunate because I've, between the mastermind groups that we're in and all the people in the industry that I'm friends with, that's not always the case. And I know that may not always be the case here, but it is today. And I'm extremely grateful.
Well, Carmine, I really appreciate the time. You run an incredible practice, and you're an incredible leader in it. And that really shows by the fact that you could take off and go to Hawaii for 3 weeks and things keep running. That's what I always say is the difference between a business and a job. And you've managed to create yourself a great business and through your leadership. So thanks for taking time to chat with us and share a little bit about your journey, your story, and all the best. And we'll see you at 1 billion, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks,
All right.
Carmine.
Take it
Have
easy.
fun.
Bye.
Take your next step in leadership. Go to leadyourfirm.com for more practical lessons in leadership for RIAs. Find the book, Clarity, at leadyourfirm.com and Amazon. Subscribe now to catch future episodes of the Lead Your Firm podcast. This podcast is a production of Fermata Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor, headquartered in Sonoma, California. Contents are for information purposes only. Nothing herein amounts to investment advice or an offer to buy or sell securities. Fermata Advisors does not provide tax or legal advice. Thank you for listening to the end. True leaders read the fine print. See you next episode.